Chapter 306, Hopelessly Worried. Phantom demons and sword demons were two different types of styles. Their skills were chosen based on whether the Ghostblade wanted to mainly use sword skills or ghost boundaries. In terms of PvE, phantom demons were actually better than sword demons. But in terms of PvP, sword demons were clearly the winner. This was especially true in a 1v1 PK, where phantom demons were publicly accepted as a weaker class. Even for Li Zan, the user of the number 1 phantom demon Crying Devil, he rarely came out during the individual or group competition. This wasn't an issue of mechanics. It was simply because the class wasn't set up for duels. Anyone who was able to join the pro scene wouldn't be bullied easily by anyone, which was why, even for a phantom demon master like Li Zan, even he wouldn't play a 1v1 match against one. But the rookie challenge competition was, after all, only a show. Winning or losing didn't matter too much. Normally, Li Zan would use his phantom demon to do battle. But today, with Gao Yingji and Wang Jiaxi's previous battle looming over him, Li Zan was too afraid to think of this match as just a show match. Moreover, he wasn't sure whether or not the other side had wanted to lure him into playing his phantom demon and then use his sword demon to suppress him. As a result, Li Zan cautiously put in his points into making a sword demon. In the end, Chao Yifan actually chose to use a phantom demon. Li Zan had figured this out when he made his first move. Apart from the difference in skills for sword demons and phantom demons, they also chose different equipment. Sword demons mainly used sword skills, which were all instant casts, so they sought after attack speed. On the other hand, phantom demons mainly used ghost boundaries, which were all cast abilities, so they sought after cast speed like mages did. After the two Ghostblades chose their equipment, one of them would have a faster attack speed, while the other would have a faster cast speed. When the two contested with ghost slashes and attacked at the same time, the sword demon had the advantage, which was why Chao Yifan's phantom demon had been hit. In a duel between phantom demons, the players contested against decision-making and wretchedness. It could be said that Chao Yifan couldn't compare to Li Zan. That guy had wretchedly chosen to create a sword demon instead of a phantom demon. His hit had connected. But in Li Zan's mind, even though he knew that the other side was a phantom demon, he couldn't relax just yet. Not just him, but these fundamental combos were already reflexes to him. When the ghost slash hit, the follow-up moonlight slash was practically done without any thought. As for Chao Yifan, he had studied the Ghostblade recently and knew about this. The instant his attack hit, he realized that Li Zan was unexpectedly using a sword demon. Chao Yifan was still a rookie, after all. A lot of his thinking wasn't as deep as those veterans. He had originally thought that the other side would definitely pick a phantom demon against him. This sudden change instantly messed up his plans and he had made a mistake because of it. It was also his very first time being on such a large stage and he had initially been very nervous. The sudden difference between reality and what he had imagined caused his mind to turn blank. Moonlight slash, full moon slash. Ghost claw into a sword boundary into an upward slash, a gore cross, and then another moonlight slash. Li Zan was incomparably skilled with this combo. Sword demons mainly focused on sword skills and only learned a few skills from other swordsman classes, such as the Blade Master's upward slash, the Berserker's gore cross, etc. These low-leveled skills weren't learned for damage, but rather as links for combos to allow cooldowns to come off. Li Zan didn't let up while comboing. This player wasn't a monster, so it wouldn't just passively take a beating while it was in the air. This was especially true for pro players, who practiced thoroughly in escaping from mid-air predicaments. But for phantom demons, no one was more clear than Li Zan on what methods could be used in mid-air. He watched very closely and set up plans for dealing with whatever movements the opponent would make. However, in the end, he had done all that thinking for nothing. After being launched into the air, his opponent was just like an NPC. He didn't respond in any way and just flopped around, taking a beating. Li Zan had even been able to complete the full combo. The audience went into an uproar. The long combo had caught everyone's attention, but the pro players were all looking at each other. A pro player being hit by a full combo was something that was completely unheard of. Was tinyUrb's rookie that bad? It looked like he didn't even attempt to escape. Could he even be called a pro player? Even a normal glory player would randomly hit their keyboards and struggle, no? Uncertain, bewildered, and disdaining, all sorts of gazes were sent towards tinyUrb's players. tinyUrb's players were all uneasy, too. Liang Fang, who had a more explosive personality, had already jumped up. What is Qiao Yifan doing? His play is too embarrassing, no? It was true that the rookie challenge was just for show, and it was true that no rookie truly wanted to beat their senior, but going up there to act like a sponge really was too embarrassing. Sit. Liang Fang had only just vented his anxiousness, when he heard his captain Wang Jiaxi coldly order him. Liang Fang immediately quieted down and sat down. He had a lot of words he wanted to say, but he didn't dare to speak now. Others who wanted to speak also quieted down. They also thought that Wang Jiaxi must be in a very bad mood right now. No one cared as much about tinyUrb as their captain. If Qiao Yifan really did lose like this, then it would definitely leave a black mark on tinyUrb. The outsiders all cheered, while the insiders were puzzled. Li Zan was one of the insiders. After completing his combo, the other side's health bar had dropped to half, but he was confused now. He had originally thought that his opponent would be like Gao Yingji with a fierce and godly skill, which was why he had made a sword demon to defend against him. But how could he have known that he was facing such a noob? The rookie didn't even know about such a fundamental skill like escaping from a mid-air situation. Against such a noob, no matter how brilliantly he won, his victory wouldn't look good. Yet he had actually been so wretched at the start. Right now, Li Zan was starting to regret what he had done and was doubting that this tinyUrb rookie had specially come out to defame him. But he also couldn't figure out why his opponent was acting like this and being so incomprehensible. Li Zan was feeling a bit embarrassed, so he didn't follow up. After Qiao Yifan's Phantom Demon was hit by the combo, he finally woke up. He quick recovered and then heard the applause from all around. His life had dropped to half, while his opponent was far away, as if he didn't intend on following up. What am I doing? Wide awake now, Qiao Yifan was somewhat angry. This was a battle that he had put careful thought into. His goal was very simple, to use the stage to show his ability. It wasn't just for tinyUrb to see. He hoped that there would be someone, in any of the teams watching, who was like God Yi Chu watching him, would see his ability and then let him continue playing in the pro scene. But the result? With just a small, unexpected change, he was immediately at a loss. Why was he such a lost cause? Sword Demon? So what? Was he so amazing that he'd be able to beat Li Zan if he had picked a Phantom Demon? All he had to do was perform. Why did it matter whether the opponent went Phantom Demon or not? After clearing his head, Qiao Yifan discovered that he had been hopelessly worried. He had been anxious about things that weren't worth paying attention to. What he had to do was show his ability. That was it. He looked at his health bar and saw only half of it was remaining. However, he had finally cooled down. There's still hope, Qiao Yifan quietly reminded himself. His Phantom Demon began to move. Li Zan's Sword Demon didn't move, though. Against a rookie who didn't even know how to get out of an aerial combo, he felt too embarrassed to act first. He was still puzzled. How was such a rookie scouted by a champion team like tinyUrb? What was so special about him? Li Zan's attitude had completely changed. He had previously been worried over whether or not his opponent would eat him, but now he was only curious to see what the rookie had in him. Seeing that his opponent was moving again, he stood still and began looking forward to see what was to come. This type of attitude was normal for a rookie challenge. Qiao Yifan's Phantom Demon rushed forward, and when he reached a certain distance, he let out a purple slash. Li Zan smiled and raised his sword to do the same. Even though he had acted slower, he already grasped the two sides' attack speeds. He was slow, but his attack still reached his opponent first. He hadn't expected his opponent to suddenly cancel his Ghost Slash. His opponent rolled forward, dodging Li Zan's Ghost Slash, and was going to take advantage of Li Zan's not yet finished Ghost Slash animation to close in two positions. Following right after, the tip of his sword glowed, but it wasn't a sword attack. White-blue ice crystals formed on his blade. He was preparing to cast an ice boundary. Oh, Li Zan understood Qiao Yifan's intent, but he didn't panic. After finishing his ghost slash, he immediately jumped. The ice boundary had already begun to condense. The sword demon raised his sword with both hands and swung down with the blade master skill, falling light blade. This attack wouldn't arrive in time to interrupt Qiao Yifan's ice boundary. However, if Qiao Yifan finished the cast, he wouldn't have enough time to dodge the attack, either. What was he going to do? They didn't have to wait long to see Qiao Yifan's decision. He didn't dodge. He continued to finish his ice boundary. The boundary congealed, but his phantom demon had already been knocked down by Li Zan's falling light blade. Qiao Yifan immediately quick recovered. Then, Qiao Yifan heard a "bo" sound and he suddenly felt delighted. He's been frozen, Qiao Yifan thought as he turned his camera. Sure enough, Li Zan's sword demon had turned into an ice cube. Qiao Yifan didn't delay and immediately sent a slash. Bo. Another sound came the same time the slash was released. The ice cube shattered and it looked as if Qiao Yifan's phantom demon had broken it. Li Zan's sword demon seemed to have anticipated this. The ice shattered and his character shot out, leaping backwards, while unleashing a berserker's gore cross towards the phantom demon. A blood-red cross. Qiao Yifan had to dodge to the side. Even if he took the hit, he still wouldn't have been able to close in on his opponent, because the gore cross had a slight knockback effect. Chapter 307, Dazzling Stage. Qiao Yifan's character rolled diagonally and it looked like he had made his way through the empty space beneath the blood cross. His dodge had been extremely dangerous. He had done it because he didn't want to miss the opportunity to attack, while his opponent was still in the ice boundary. Avoiding the gore cross, Qiao Yifan's phantom demon raised the tip of his sword. He wanted to open another ghost boundary in order to seal off his opponent's escape route. Using a successive ghost boundary to trap the opponent into a boundary was a commonly used tactic among phantom demons. Qiao Yifan's ice boundary surrounded Li Zan's sword demon. He believed that he had had opportunity and began casting another boundary. But as soon as he began chanting, Li Zan's sword demon suddenly turned around and swung. The two were quite a distance away from each other and a normal slash definitely wouldn't hit. But after swinging his sword, the ground inside the ice boundary suddenly surged like a wave towards Qiao Yifan's phantom demon. Spellblade skill, Earthquake Sword. Li Zan had only put in 1 point into this low-leveled spellblade skill. This could be seen from the length of ground that had been swept forward. But it didn't matter, so long as it reached where Qiao Yifan's phantom demon was standing. This time though, Qiao Yifan didn't have a choice. If he was swept away by the earthquake sword, then his casting would definitely be interrupted. Helpless, he cancelled his casting and dodged the attack. From falling light blade to gore cross to earthquake sword. These low-leveled blade master, berserker, and spellblade skills had only been ranked up once. They weren't learned for damage, but rather for their effects. By using these 3 low-leveled skills, Li Zan's sword demon safely escaped from the ice boundary, while Qiao Yifan was unable to set up another boundary to trap his opponent. Qiao Yifan felt that it was unfortunate. It hadn't been easy to confine his opponent in the ice boundary. The freeze effect had even worked. It had been a great opportunity, but he hadn't been able to seize it. But PK were always ever-changing. If an opportunity could be fully grasped so easily, then PK would be way too simple. Furthermore, his opponent was a god among ghostblades. Even though Qiao Yifan felt that it was a pity, he wasn't discouraged. He carefully observed the position of Li Zan's sword demon and rushed forward again. Li Zan wasn't alarmed in the slightest, however. With just that single exchange, he fully grasped Qiao Yifan's ability. His performance had been orderly and methodical, but it couldn't be said that he was extremely skilled. Seeing Qiao Yifan rush forward, he didn't hurry. Instead, he casually set up a sword boundary. Qiao Yifan looked and immediately came to a stop. He wouldn't let himself enter his opponent's boundary. Standing outside the boundary, he began to chant. Purple flames jumped up from his phantom demon's blade, congealing into a flaming figure. He had cast a flame boundary. With the ghost out, numerous dark purple fire ghosts leapt into the area within the boundary. The ghosts scattered around as if they were looking for a target to burn. The flame boundary had been cast inside Li Zan's sword boundary. The two boundaries overlapped. However, Li Zan's sword demon had already jumped backwards and didn't set foot into the flame boundary. Qiao Yifan didn't think that the flame boundary would trap his opponent. The boundary had been cast for his own protection, so he'd be able to enter the opponent's sword boundary. Everything sounded complicated, but in reality, it had all happened within the span of a few seconds. Inside the boundaries, the two moved around extremely quickly. Inside his flame boundary, Qiao Yifan's phantom demon quickly dashed into Li Zan's sword boundary. But to his surprise, Li Zan's sword demon also suddenly rushed into his area as if he wasn't afraid of the flame boundary's damage. Li Zan's charge forward had been outside of Qiao Yifan's expectations. Li Zan's sword demon raised his sword with a moonlight slash and then slashed down. He would then naturally follow up with a full moonlight slash closely after. Players had even given the combo a name, Double Moon Slash. Qiao Yifan didn't have the time to defend and the two strikes connected. The damage from a sword demon's strike buffed by a max-leveled sword boundary was quite terrifying. The health bar on Qiao Yifan's phantom demon went down a chunk, but he immediately stood back up with a quick recover. The opponent had rushed into his flame boundary. It was another opportunity for him. But the audience could see the situation more clearly than he could. The instant Li Zan's sword demon rushed into the flame boundary, those dark purple flame ghosts immediately pounced at him. In that short interval, Li Zan's sword demon had used the double moon slash and then leapt back. Even though those flame ghosts were quick, they hadn't been able to hit him. Li Zan's sword demon had escaped from the flame boundary. The audience cheered wildly. Going into the flame boundary without being entangled by the purple flame ghosts was undoubtedly a testament to his extremely precise mechanics and decision-making. Li Zan deserved to be called the number one phantom demon since no one else had a deeper understanding of these things than he did. When Qiao Yifan got up, he saw that Li Zan had escaped from the flame boundary. This time, he was surprised. At the same time, he faintly felt that he had failed to consider a few things when he had made his decision. Li Zan retreated and stopped moving again. He was waiting for Qiao Yifan to move up. He had entered his persona now and had completely taken this match as a teaching opportunity for the new rookie. He hoped to be a bit more stylish and more technical in order to erase the audience's previous impression of him as wretched and without style. Qiao Yifan no longer had a way out and could only move forward. He used the terrain, pathing, and his character. Dual chain boundaries, triple boundaries. Qiao Yifan used everything he knew and without any mistakes either. Everything he did had been done 100%. However, it was no use. Every strategy he used was crushed by Li Zan. From the audience's cheers again and again, Qiao Yifan could tell that they weren't towards him. His health continued to drop. After all these exchanges, he hadn't even been able to take off a fifth of Li Zan's health. Qiao Yifan was at a loss again. The first time was because he had panicked after encountering something unexpected. After adjusting his attitude, he resolved that panic feeling. But this time, he felt completely powerless. Qiao Yifan was already at wit's end. All of the tricks and tactics he employed were all useless. None of them had made a difference. Every single one of his plans was destroyed by a single move from his opponent. The only thing that had happened with every exchange was his health bar depleting. And his opponent. Throughout these numerous exchanges, his opponent never made the first move. He didn't even dodge. He would always wait for him to rush forward. Then he would proceed to tear down his plans, calmly dissolving his attacks and easily countering back. Even when there was an opening, he wouldn't combo him to death like he had done in the beginning. He would always let him go and have Qiao Yifan continue. Beat his opponent? Qiao Yifan no longer carried any hope of this fantasy. Even his ultimate goal of displaying his ability hadn't been achieved. His thoughts and intents had been completely seen through and no matter how hard he tried, they never worked. His health was already red. In the next exchange, he was afraid that he would go down. Fight! At this moment, what else could Qiao Yifan do? He once again focused and rushed forward. His fingers fluttered and his movements were quicker than before. His character quickly met with Li Zan's sword demon and he instantly set 4 ghost boundaries. His opponent. His opponent was once again standing outside of the boundary. He had been moving like this ever since Chow Yifan's first ghost boundary. His character constantly moved and slipped out from the small cracks in the 4 consecutively casted ghost boundaries. Chow Yifan felt hopeless. Movements he wasn't even able to do in practice had been easily accomplished by his opponent. Li Zan's sword demon pounced on him, and from his poker face, Chow Yifan felt like he saw a cynical smile. No, not 1, but 2, no, 3, no, even more. Some he recognized, some he didn't. The sword light swept down. Amidst the cheers, Chow Yifan's phantom demon fell. Chow Yifan stood up from his platform, dizzy. He knew that he had been completely crushed. 2 pillars of light dropped down onto the 2 contestants. In the rookie challenge, both sides were given the same treatment. Chow Yifan walked down from his platform to the center of the stage. He saw Li Zan standing in front of him, full of smiles. Li Zan said a few words to him, but Chow Yifan couldn't hear any of it. He shook hands mechanically and then silently walked away from the stage. Behind him, Li Zan was waving his hands and calling out to the audience. Many of his words were in praise of Chow Yifan's performance. But Chow Yifan knew that these words were just common courtesy. The other side was only showing off his style. The praise didn't have anything to do with him. Even if he had just sat there stunned like he was in the beginning, Li Zan would still praise, "Not bad. You played very well." Chow Yifan walked over to his seat and saw his teammates. They were supposed to be the people he knew best, but they felt like strangers now. Chow Yifan ground his teeth. He didn't walk towards them and continued along the path past them. "Yifan." He heard someone call him from behind. He could tell that it was Gao Yingji's voice. He didn't stop and walked even faster. The stadium's lights were focused on the stage and were scattered sparsely around the audience's seats. In order to enhance the effects for today's projection technology, these unnecessary places were even darker. Gao Yingji chased after him, but it was already too late to find which direction Chow Yifan went. After reaching the exit, Chow Yifan couldn't help but look back. The stage was as dazzling as ever. It had been his first time going up onto such a beautiful stage, but he was afraid that it might be his last. Chapter 308, Opportunity goes to those who are prepared. The passageway leading outside of the stadium wasn't completely dark. There was still some light. Chow Yifan silently walked towards outside, but after going around in a few circles, he discovered that he had gotten lost. Chow Yifan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He really was unfamiliar with these official stadiums. By himself, he couldn't even find the exit. He had met with a crushing defeat on stage. Aware that it was very likely that his career was about to end, Chow Yifan had walked away. Lost, he couldn't bear the aching in his heart anymore as tears began flowing out his eyes. Chow Yifan raised his arms, wiping off his tears. His heartache only drove his stubbornness, though. He refused to believe that he didn't even have the ability to find the exit. Wiping away his tears, Chow Yifan didn't try to find where he was and blindly pressed forward. "You were too reckless." Suddenly, a sound echoed out from the gloom. Chow Yifan stopped, startled. He then shook his head. This was just a passageway. What was so strange about hearing someone's voice? Thinking this, Chow Yifan took a step, when he heard the voice again say, "I'm talking to you. Don't run." Chow Yifan startled. Was he talking to himself? He halted, turned his head, and saw a long shadow stretched out in the passageway. A person stood there, but in the darkness, it was hard to see the person's features clearly. "Are you talking to me?" Chow Yifan didn't recognize him. Yes, the person walked towards him, while continuing, "I know what you're thinking. You wanted to use the stage to show to everyone your ability as a phantom demon, but you went too far with your opponent, no? You actually chose Li Zan? What were you thinking?" The person's voice echoed in the passageway. With this, Chow Yifan suddenly felt that, whether it was the person's voice or tone, they both felt familiar. He waited until the other side walked over. He saw his face clearly, but he didn't recognize him. Chow Yifan was still puzzled as the other side finished talking. Chow Yifan replied with a complete loss, "I want to play as a phantom demon, so if you were there to learn and you wanted to greet your senior, then choosing Li Zan would obviously be the correct choice." But if you were there to showcase your ability as a phantom demon, then Li Zan is the one person you don't want to choose. Chow Yifan stared blankly. On stage, he had felt that there were places where he hadn't fully considered. Now that he heard this, he suddenly came to a realization. In the entirety of Glory, no one is more familiar with phantom demons than Li Zan. If you wanted to show your ability as a phantom demon in front of him, then of course you'd be restrained. You're displaying your slight skill in front of a master. How could you even be able to show a tenth of your strength? Chow Yifan understood. He completely understood. He had taken the line of thought that other rookies used in the Rookie Challenge and chose the expert who played the same class as him, Li Zan. But he forgot that his reasoning for participating in the Rookie Challenge was different than that of the others. He wanted to show off his phantom demon, but he ended up choosing the opponent who was most familiar with phantom demons. He had directly given himself the hardest obstacle there was. And besides, the other side continued, phantom demons are most valuable in a team. It's difficult to showcase your team awareness and mechanics in a 1v1 match like the Rookie Challenge. In addition, you still have very little experience. You haven't even practiced for a month and you want to challenge Li Zan already. I'm completely speechless. God Yi Chu, hearing this, Chow Yifan finally figured out who the person in front of him was. Not many knew of his identity, nor that he was practicing a phantom demon. At first, everything had been muddy. He only felt that the voice sounded familiar, but he just couldn't think of anything. Now that he saw that this person knew so much about him, he connected the two together and finally figured out the person's identity. Yeah, it's me. Yi Shu nodded his head. He practically never showed himself in public, so the only pro players that did know him were those at a certain level. For players like Chow Yifan, who hadn't even participated in an official match, even though he was in the pro scene, he had never seen Yi Shu's true face before. Quote, "You don't need to doubt your ability," Yi Shu said, "but don't think that you'll be able to catch anyone's attention right now. There are quite a lot of people with potential, but if you want to be seen by a pro team, then you first need to have, at the very least, some substance. You're still very far from being an expert at playing a phantom demon. But you're still young. You still have time to continue practicing. Keep waiting for the opportunity to come. It's only been a month and you want to challenge the #1 phantom demon? Glory isn't as simple as you think." Quote. With this, Chow Yifan's face reddened. In the past, he had always thought that he was no good. But after hearing the god's encouragement, he suddenly had renewed confidence in himself. He had thought that if God Yi Shu was able to see his potential, then others would be able to see it, too. All he needed was a chance, a stage. This was why he had participated in the Rookie Challenge. He hadn't thought hard enough when choosing Li Zan as an opponent. He understood the reasoning now, but he wouldn't get wrapped up in it anymore. It was because his choice wouldn't have made a difference. Even if he had picked a different opponent, with only a month of practicing his phantom demon, did he really think that he'd be able to move a pro team's emotions with his ability right now? Yi Shu wanted him to understand this. He wanted him to understand that his thinking had been too reckless. Chow Yifan's thoughts turned and he quickly acknowledged this. He had never thought that he was as talented as a genius like Gao Yingji. Even Yi Chu had never given him such an evaluation. He recalled their first meeting. God Yi Chu had only told him that an assassin wouldn't be able to show his potential and that a phantom demon suited him more. That was all. He still needed to practice. He needed to practice until the day he would truly glimmer. Chow Yifan wiped away the last tear from the corner of his eyes. The despair in his heart had suddenly been swept away. Because this time, he finally truly understood himself. He finally knew where he was at. Opportunity. Stage. It was still much too early to think of these things. Opportunities were left to those who were prepared. As for him, he wasn't even close to being prepared, yet he anxiously wanted to grab at an opportunity he thought looked good, which had only resulted in his falling. But from now on, Chow Yifan decided that he wouldn't think of all this. He just had to focus on practicing. After the season ended, would he still be admitted into the team? His greatest worry had finally been seen through. Would there be a team that would accept him? What was even the point in worrying over it? He first had to train hard before an opportunity would come. Even if he was kicked off his team after this season, it didn't matter. He was still young and could still practice. In the worst-case scenario, he would start over from the beginning as a new rookie. The passageway was still as dark as before, but after understanding all of this, Chow Yifan's heart was a field of light. "Thank you, Senior," Chow Yifan expressed his gratitude to Yi Shu. "You can do it." Yi Shu nodded his head and turned around, ready to leave. "What about you, Senior?" Chow Yifan suddenly asked. "Why did you choose to retire so early?" Tiny Herb's players could be considered as having the most interactions with Yi Shu after his retirement. They would spar every week and they would always lose miserably. It was true that unspecialized characters had a class advantage, but everyone was still at a pro level. Losing every match like that was a bit too much. Besides having a class advantage, it was clear that the user's skill level had to be respected. Choosing to retire with such skill had been discussed in Tiny Herb long before now. Chow Yifan had broken from his spell and asked Yi Shu. Yi Shu turned his head and smiled. "I'm looking for an opportunity, too." Chow Yifan stared blankly. "You're going to come back?" "Of course. Even though I'm a bit old, I'm not done yet," Yi Shu said as he turned around. He waved his hands at Chow Yifan and slipped away into the darkness. Chow Yifan stood there silently for a while and then began walking. After coming to a sudden understanding, the direction he should go cleared up. The passageway was still the same passageway, but after a few more steps, he quickly came out. But the direction that he came out from wasn't the exit, but rather the stadium. He had returned to look at that dazzling stage. In the stadium, the next match had already begun. Because the characters in the Rookie Challenge were all temporary, the audience usually couldn't tell who the player was from the ID. But in this round, the IDs on top of the two characters weren't unfamiliar. Delilo, 3 hits. These two were undoubtedly active characters in the alliance. In order to not let the veterans have an advantage in characters, they set up the rule so that they wouldn't use their accounts. But if the rookie wanted the veteran to, then the veteran could use his account. The rookie had clearly put out the requirement in this match. Tang Hao had been an unknown rookie in his first year. But after the summer passed, it was as if he had suddenly gained enlightenment. He took off in the competitive season and became a core member of Team 100 Blossoms after their captain Zhang Jiali suddenly retired. The only pity was that his brawler character, Delilo, couldn't match his beautiful god-level performance. As a second-year rookie, Tang Hao still had the qualifications to be in the Rookie Challenge. With his not-quite-god status and also a rookie status, it was beneath him to join the Rookie Challenge. But Tang Hao had chosen to sign up and he had chosen to fight against a player playing the same class, Lin Jingyan, and proposed the request for him to use his active account. The challenged veteran could not refuse. Lin Jingyan had no choice but to use what was considered the number 1 brawler character, 3 hits. Tang Hao's purpose wasn't to show his respect and it definitely wasn't to ask for advice. In the pro scene, although Tang Hao's name resounded far and wide, many regarded Lin Jingyan as the same. He was old, but still vigorous. This challenge was a true challenge. Tang Hao seemed like he wanted to use this opportunity as proof of his superiority. This was because when he went up on stage to speak, Tang Hao only said 5 words, "The junior succeeds the senior." Chapter 309, The Junior Succeeds the Senior. Chow Yifan watched the match as he felt his way back to Tiny Herb's seats. Yifan, apart from Gao Yingji's shout of surprise, the others only glanced at him. If this was the past, Chow Yifan would definitely feel ashamed, but now, his attitude had already completely changed after going out and coming back. The team's cold treatment towards him was no longer important. As long as he had enough strength, he wouldn't need to worry anymore. I went to the restroom. Chow Yifan smiled to Gao Yingji, while quietly moving to Gao Yingji's side, where his original seat was at. Tang Hao's challenging Lin Jingyan. He's being very disrespectful. As soon as he went up on the stage, he said that the junior would succeed the senior. Both of them are using their own accounts and both are truly sparked. While Chow Yifan sat down, Gao Yingji hastily told him the match's situation. Oh. Chow Yifan nodded his head and immediately focused on the match. He felt very grateful in his heart. He knew that his best friend wasn't just saying all of this to have him catch up on the parts he had missed. He had said all that to help distract Chow Yifan from his worries. No one would feel happy with the results of that previous match. Gao Yingji was a very shy person. He wasn't the type to directly say any consoling words, so all he could do was use this type of method to help Chow Yifan bring up his spirit. There was quite a bit of discussion among the pro players and some of it made its way to Chow Yifan's ears. Everyone was discussing the current match. Quite a few of them were comparing it to the previous match between Gao Yingji and Wang Jiexi. It was clear that this year's rookie challenge was abnormal. Gao Yingji and Wang Jiexi had fought seriously and the new rookie had mercilessly struck down his captain. Also, during this match, which had Tang Hao versus Lin Jingyan, everyone could tell that it would be another great match just from Tang Hao's attitude. Sure enough, as soon as the match started, the two sides rapidly met and began to battle without any signs of holding back. Tang Hao's words had been announced wide and clear. If Lin Jingyan backed out, no one would see it as style. If he was going to back out, he would have to at least convince Tang Hao through fighting. Then, if he said something nice, that would be true style. However, this was just a theoretical situation. Tang Hao wasn't a normal rookie. If this was during any other time, this wouldn't only be considered a challenge by a rookie. In everyone's eyes, he was already at the same status as a senior. The Alliance did desire this type of challenge by a highly skilled rookie, though. Putting the rookie experience limit to 2 years had been a result of this consideration. Tang Hao's conduct wasn't consistent with the rookie challenge's intentions, but it was certainly eye-catching. This could be seen from the audience's loud cheers and shouts. The atmosphere right now was even more intense than it had been for any previous match. The reporters who had originally thought that nothing today would ever top the match between Gao Yingji and Wang Jiexi had their spirits rekindled once again. It was true that Gao Yingji beating Wang Jiexi had been surprising news, but the genius rookie himself didn't have a very suitable persona. How could he be more eye-catching than Tang Hao's "the junior succeeds the senior" words? The reporters were all appreciating the match. Quite a few of them had already started writing down things. The battle on the field was extremely intense, but any experienced Glory player could tell that Lin Jingyan's situation was looking very bad. In his former years, he had been the king of brawlers, but it was already a fact that his condition had greatly fallen. Although his 3 hits was much stronger than Tang Hao's Delilo, in a direct match, he was still much worse overall. Tang Hao's play was quicker and he was practically always on the offensive. Lin Jingyan's reaction speed and mechanics were no longer as acute as they were before and he was only barely keeping up through his experience. He knew that, for this match, there was no point in talking about any style for winning. Leaving the match as a whole was already looking like an extravagant hope. His only hope was that Tang Hao would make a mistake. It wouldn't be surprising if someone, who had only been playing as a pro for 2 years, made a mistake. The efficient and shrewd Lin Jingyan tried his hardest to keep up. As time went on, he hoped that he'd be able to catch Tang Hao in a mistaken counterattack. He truly wasn't capable of clashing directly with him anymore. Lin Jingyan had already carried out every method he knew, but things never turned out the way he expected. Tang Hao had obviously made a few mistakes, but his reactions had been faster and he made up for it quickly, too. Half of these openings were seen by Lin Jingyan, but he wasn't able to seize any opportunities and could only watch as Tang Hao closed the openings. Aside from these, there were those he was able to seize, but the damage he returned couldn't even compare to Tang Hao's repeated fierce attacks. Lin Jingyan knew that he was too slow. He saw many openings, but he wasn't able to capitalize on them. Tang Hao's quicker hands were always able to dissolve his counterattacks. Was there no chance? Many thought this way. However, the veteran's perseverance wouldn't let him give up. Lin Jingyan persevered and continued to wait for an opportunity. Until the very last second, no one would know of the result. Perhaps a huge mistake he could capitalize upon would come. It was still too early to give up. So the match continued. The junior succeeds the senior. The main theme was being displayed beautifully right now. Tang Hao and Lin Jingyan weren't home players, so there was a clear divide between the fans. After all, Tang Hao wasn't someone like Gao Yingji and Chao Yifan who hadn't participated in an official match. His godly performance in the season had quickly helped him gather quite a few fans. The match's situation could be seen from the two sides' supporters. On Lin Jingyan's side, the fans were encouraging him. And Tang Hao's side? His fans were already yelling like crazy. They were no longer shouting anything of substance and had already entered a party animal state. Tang Hao's fierce attacks looked even madder. Brawlers weren't a class that directly fought. Brick, sand toss, apply poison. Just from these skill names, people could figure out this class's wretchedness. However, Tang Hao's Delilo looked as if he were a striker. Attack, attack, attack. Continuous attacks. Waiting. Patiently waiting. The fans' emotions wouldn't affect a veteran like Lin Jingyan. He was still patiently waiting for an opening to arrive. Here. Just as he entered a red blood state, Lin Jingyan's eyes brightened. The fierce Tang Hao finally failed to follow up on one of his attacks, creating a huge opening. With the match nearly over, such an opening might not be enough to reverse the situation, but it could be the start of one. Lin Jingyan didn't overthink it and seized the opportunity to fiercely attack Tang Hao. His right hand shot out. 3 hits executed a strangle towards Tang Hao's Delilo. However, Delilo suddenly somersaulted as if he knew the attack was coming. Lin Jingyan started. He hastily tried to adjust himself, but then his screen turned black. Delilo's legs kicked forward and smashed into 3 hits forehead. Brawler skill, powerful knee strike. Lin Jingyan knew that things weren't looking good. So his opponent was ready for it? Had the previous opening been a bait? The powerful knee strike wasn't enough to make the opponent fall, but the instant Delilo struck 3 hits, he grabbed him with his arms and used the skill Tiger Flipping Mountain to knock 3 hits to the ground. Delilo also flipped over, but he quick recovered faster than Lin Jingyan. 3 hits wasn't able to get up in time and was pressed to the ground by Delilo, which was followed by a flurry of fists. High-leveled brawler skill, Tyrannical Chain Punch. Lin Jingyan well understood the skill's damage. He looked at his health and saw that there was no longer any hope. Under Tang Hao's quick hands, the Tyrannical Chain Punch came out even faster. And after this move was completed, 3 hits health disappeared and he was not able to stand up anymore. Along with the word glory, the announcer announced the final winner. The junior had succeeded the senior. The media only wanted more things to talk about. They wouldn't favor any one side because of their feelings. The 2 players came down from their platforms and shook hands in the middle of the stage. You played well, Lin Jingyan forced a smile. After playing in the pro scene for so many years, he was already used to hiding his true emotions. The junior succeeds the senior. Tang Hao shook Lin Jingyan's hands. Only these 5 words were said. Even the master of ceremonies felt that the situation really was somewhat awkward. Just as he was about to interrupt, the 2 players finished shaking hands. Tang Hao stood up, waved his hands towards the audience, and then left the stage. The master of ceremonies looked pitifully at Lin Jingyan. He didn't know what he should do. But Lin Jingyan only continued to smile at the host, and then after waving his hands to the audience, he silently left the stage. By normal standards, he wasn't considered old at all. But on the esports stage, his leaving figure made the audience feel as if he was doddering a bit. The pro players looked at each other. Tang Hao's actions had challenged the tradition. Even though Gao Yingji had beaten his team captain, from start to finish, he hadn't been disrespectful in the slightest. Amidst everyone's discussion, the commentators announced the next match. Rookie Challenger, Team Excellent Era, Sun Shang. Veteran Challenge, Team Tyrannical Ambition, Han Wenqing. Soon after, the commentators excitedly announced that for this match, the rookie requested that the veteran use his own account. The shouts and cheers from the audience were earth-shattering. With this request, the hype for this match far exceeded the last one. Tang Hao's Delilo was a very mediocre character in the pro scene. And even though Lin Jingyan's 3 hits was considered the number 1 brawler character, it wasn't considered a god-level account. But the accounts owned by Sun Shang and Han Wenqing were very different. Battle God, 1 Autumn Leaf. King of Fighting, Desert Dust. Ever since the Glory Alliance was founded, these two god-level characters had never stopped fighting. Chapter 310, A Conclusion. It could be heard from the audience's cheers just how sensational the appearance of these accounts were. It was already difficult enough to see a god-level account come out in the Rookie Challenge. For there to be two god-level accounts coming out as opponents, this was definitely a first in the history of the Rookie Challenge. Every reporter today was destined to be busy tonight. They hadn't yet finished switching the lead story to "The Junior Beats the Senior," when suddenly, an even more explosive story had come out. Of course, the more explosive the story, the more excited these diligent reporters became. The previous drafts they had didn't need to be trashed. All they had to do was switch their positions on the page. Right now, they were hoping that Sun Xiang would be like Tang Hao and say a challenge similar to "The Junior Beats the Senior." If that happened, the reporters would certainly go crazy. On stage, Sun Xiang loftily walked up. Without a doubt, no rookie had a greater reputation than he did. He was in his second year as a pro like Tang Hao, but he was far more eye-catching than Tang Hao. In his first year, his godlike performance won him the Most Outstanding Rookie title. His performance in this season also continued to be outstanding. Halfway through the season, he transferred to Excellent Era, and after receiving the god-level account, One Autumn Leaf, it could already be said that Sun Xiang stood together, alongside the top gods. Critics even praised that his control over One Autumn Leaf was more than enough to allow Excellent Era's fans to forget about Yi Chu. The majority of players probably even forgot that he was still a rookie. If Sun Xiang went up and respectfully greeted his senior, he probably won't win many people's approval. After all, his status was already different. If he put himself as a regular rookie, then that would be too excessive. Undue modesty was conceit. Furthermore, Sun Xiang had never been a modest person. The keen reporters predicted that Sun Xiang definitely wouldn't let this match be a dull one. Sun Zhang's appearances weren't bad either. After walking up on stage, he had already begun waving his hands to the audience as if he were already the winner. The host walked forward and asked for Sun Zhang's reason for challenging Han Wenqing as if he were interviewing him. The reason is very simple. Sun Xiang smiled with a manner of a god. For Excellent Era and tyrannical ambition, I will settle the old grudge between One Autumn Leaf and Desert Dust. After the audience heard this, they were at first stumped for words. But then they began to shout and cheer loudly again. Sun Zhang's words weren't as ruthless as Tang Hao's "The Junior Beats the Senior," but what it represented was extremely rich. Tang Hao's words were only limited to the contest for the number 1 brawler, while what Sun Xiang planned on doing was a true god versus god battle. In addition, his words represented the rivalry between two of the oldest clubs in the alliance. Sun Xiang was Excellent Era's team captain and used One Autumn Leaf. He was worthy of taking the responsibility. Although the majority of the people here were Samsara fans, no one would ever dare to object to watching an exciting match. As long as they were a Glory fan, no one wanted to miss the rivalry between these two teams. Amidst the massive cheers, there was also a small portion of cursing, which were naturally from Tyranny's fans. Sun Zhang's challenge was too much to bear, so they impolitely began cursing. If there were Tyranny fans, then naturally there would be Excellent Era fans. Except Excellent Era's fans were the only ones cheering, so they looked about the same as the majority of the audience and didn't stand out. However, the Excellent Era fan next to Yi Chu was quite eye-catching. She jumped up and down, waved her arms, and shouted, "Beat Han Wenqing." "Slow down," Yi Chu hastily called. He was afraid that Chen Guo would stumble from being too excited and fall into the front seats. Under the host's introduction, Tyranny's team captain Han Wenqing finally walked onto the stage. Even though Sun Xiang wasn't modest, under the audience's eyes, he didn't want to appear impolite, so he extended his hands. "Please advise me, senior." He would still say the polite words any player should say. "It's an honor." Han Wenqing shook Sun Zhang's hands and emotionlessly replied. Sun Xiang chuckled and turned around to walk towards his competition platform. The host wanted to ask Han Wenqing few questions, but when he got up close and saw Han Wenqing's cold gaze, his heart trembled and he was unable to utter a single word. Han Wenqing waved his hands towards the cheering audience and then headed over to his platform. The two were both using their own accounts, so they could skip choosing the equipment and adding skill points part. The lights quickly dimmed and the projection appeared onto the stage. One autumn leaf and desert dust had already appeared at the two ends of the map. The commentator was even more enthusiastic for this match. He already knew that the two would quickly begin fighting, so without wasting a breath, he quickly introduced the two players and their characters. Battle mages and strikers are classes that excel at direct confrontations. If we take a look at this Market Street map that Sun Xiang chose, the map doesn't favor either of the two classes. It doesn't seem to have been chosen for any tactical purpose. Quote, after introducing the two sides, the commentator began talking about the map. These types of commentary were quite rare in the Rookie Challenge, but the commentator had already recognized that this match would be a true fight, which was why the commentator began analyzing the match from the very start. Okay, the two sides didn't do any unnecessary actions and headed straight for the middle of the map, the commentator said. The two characters met at the corner of one of the streets. The silver weapon, Evil Annihilation, held in one autumn leaf's hands glinted a dark, cold light. The silver weapon, Flame Fists, worn by Desert Dust were two fiery flames that enveloped his fists. Right now, the two sides were about 10 positions away. Both stopped there for a short while as if they were sending their respects and then rushed forward, practically at the same time. In terms of attack range, the battle mage's long weapon was undoubtedly much greater than the striker with the shortest fist weapon, so the first to attack was of course, Sun Xiang. A black light flashed and one autumn leaf's Evil Annihilation initiated with a dragon tooth. Han Wenking didn't dodge. His Desert Dust continued forward as his two hands twisted towards Evil Annihilation, answering with an empty-handed blade block. Sun Xiang obviously wouldn't give him an opportunity and immediately turned the stab into a slash, turning the dragon tooth into a sky strike. The empty-handed blade block hit nothing and the skill couldn't be used immediately again. Desert Dust sidestepped Evil Annihilation, although it looked like he really didn't want to. As soon as his body passed by the attack, he immediately punched forward. The blazing fists shot out like a fierce mountain tiger. Sun Xiang hastily jumped back to dodge. Han Wenking, who didn't know about the word retreat, once again went forward to attack. The advantage of the battle mage in attack range wasn't able to be shown. From just that quick exchange, Han Wenking had already broken through the advantage and sent Desert Dust up next to one autumn leaf. Sun Xiang looked to be having some difficulty warding off the flurry of fists. However, not just anyone could show this. Against someone with slightly less skill, who knew how much damage Han Wenking's fists would be able to do. The tempest of attacks stopped. Sun Xiang heaved a sigh of relief, and just as he was planning on attacking, he saw Desert Dust crouch into a horse stance. His left hand swayed in front of him, while his right hand pressed on his waist. Not good, Sun Xiang startled. This was the starting animation for the striker skill, Emperor's Fist. This skill had an extremely long cooldown and was usually used in the middle of a combo to inflict heavy damage while the opponent had no place to run. Right now, Sun Zhang's one autumn leaf wasn't in this type of situation. Using this huge type of skill in this situation would prove to be extremely easy to dodge for a pro player. It really was a huge waste. Sun Xiang hadn't thought that Han Wenking would use the skill at such a moment, but Han Wenking had done it. Sun Xiang didn't dare to try an attack. Just from the name, it could be seen that Emperor's Fist wasn't an ordinary skill. Punch. A sharp whistle split the air. Emperor's Fist was only a single punch, but the power and speed of it was at its extreme. Sun Xiang dodged in a flurry and avoided it. But the wind from the punch caused one autumn leaf to stumble. Sun Zhang's mechanics indeed weren't ordinary. Despite his character staggering and his camera being unsteady, one autumn leaf's Evil Annihilation did not stop dancing in front of his body. The blue waves emanating from it weren't jumbled. It was evident that his control was exceptional. His Evil Annihilation shook and pierced through the waves of blue, which gathered onto the spear's tip. Even though he hadn't been hit by Emperor's Fist, the wind from it put Sun Xiang into an unfavorable situation. In this scenario, most players could only watch as their opponent followed up with a wave of attacks. But Sun Xiang was able to complete a powerful skill in this situation. Dragon rises from the sea. Evil Annihilation flew through like an ocean spray. The blue-colored waves rolled along, sounding like an unceasing torrent. Desert Dust was still in his end animation. The attack came quickly and could not be dodged. The strike connected. Sun Shang seized this opportunity and followed up with a string of attacks, giving Han Wenqing a beat back. The two went back and forth. Large skills and small. Amidst the flood of light from the visual effects, it was almost difficult to see the characters. The two were evenly matched. Apart from the starting exchange, neither side was ever able to combo more than 3 attacks again. Lance and Fist. The surroundings had already been destroyed. The battle was clearly extremely intense. However, the amount of health that dropped was extremely small. In this type of intense battle, the majority of the attacks from the two were either dodged or blocked. The match was in a deadlock and in the blink of an eye, 10 minutes had passed.